Hello, I've got for you today an ink from Montblanc's Elixir collection. This is from their colorist vein of that collection, Azure. Very promising color, hopefully. So let's see how it performs. I'm not particularly sure if this ink is released in conjunction with any other series of pens. So, for example, their limited edition Patron of Arts will have a limited edition ink also released with it. But with this Elixir colorist collection, I'm not too sure exactly which pen it goes with. They have a gold that goes with their flex or their calligraphy nibs, and they've got a cobalt that goes with their Egyptian Mania collection. But this doesn't seem to be with any particular pen. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm not entirely sure what makes this collection special, or why it is 4 times the price of their standard ink. Somebody suggested that it's because the materials that they use to make the pigments are pricier, right? So that's one hypothesis. But they come in these very sturdy bottles, and I think that's a missed opportunity on Montblanc's part in terms of, the documentation that comes with this is simply a standard pamphlet you get with all their inks. That doesn't really describe what makes this particular ink special. There. But we'll take a look at it. So I've got here to test the ink a little booklet that contains a number of samples of sheets of paper from various lines, including Montblanc's notebook, Clairefontaine, some standard office paper, semi-gloss paper, some drawing papers, vellum paper, and then to top it off, some tracing paper and some wonderful birch. So each type of paper has a different behavior, and sort of gives you a bit of different information on the nature of the ink. So each time I get an ink, I'll sort of put in a sample that allows me to sort of track how it behaves over time. Some of their inks are not particularly robust. They do fade with time, most notably their royal blue, and that's particularly egregious on office paper. So if you sign in royal blue a few years down the road, the signature is going to be a bit washed out. But back to our Azure. So I'll put it with some greens, see how it performs. They do have a perfumed line of this series where they've got Elixir perfumes. Can be interesting, but these aren't scented. Let's just dip the nib. I'm not going to charge this pen up with it, but we'll take a look. Okay, so let's see how it behaves. This is Azure. I'll get a close-up in a moment. So right away, definitely on the blue side of turquoise. I think it's a bit of a gamble to go with these paler colors, as they tend to read more like they're washed out rather than sort of a nice color. Not too bad. Good coverage on the tracing paper. You're never going to write on birch, but it is definitely a strong indicator of how well the ink lubricates the nib on the paper. Because if the ink is, if the ink isn't great, the pen drags a lot more on the birch. But if the ink is nice, if it works well, it's a lot smoother. So let's take a look close up. So on the Montblanc paper, it's pretty good. It doesn't feather. Same thing on the Clairefontaine. This paper is usually what I'd consider the best indicator of what the color is going to be like, or what it should be like. On Xerox, bit of feathering, yes, a bit. The line's not quite as defined, and it definitely is lightening up rather quickly. So colors, of course, fade with time as they dry, and then with time as the ink changes, as the pigment changes, as it reacts to the environment. So a few different things lead to the change in pigment in the moments as you use it, and then over time as it changes. So how does it compare to their other inks? I definitely think this Elixir collection works a lot better than their other inks when it comes to sticking to paper, like the tracing paper. Of course, the tracing paper is highly polished and it doesn't absorb ink very well, so on inks that don't cover very well, it tends to bead up. But on inks that do cover well, it leaves this very well-defined, crisp line. So I think it performs very well. But the color, I think, might leave something to be desired. Of course, if you need a nice light color, it's definitely something to consider. Compared to its Greek, the Greek blue is one that they released in sort of a bundle of 3 that I think might have also contained, what else did it contain? Some lighter blues. Oh no, the ultramarine and the Egyptian. So the Egyptian is definitely the lightest blue so far, next to the Azure. So how do they compare? Azure definitely has a bit more of a turquoise in it, and the Egyptian blue is definitely on the blue side. The best performing blue so far is the ultramarine, but it's, I think, a bit harder to get. The Greek blue, of course, washed out. Looks a bit washed out, which is a bit disappointing because when you apply it and it's wet, it's really very vibrant. And then the regular blues and some of the other blues are just a bit darker. So there you have it. A quick sample of Montblanc's colorist collection, Azure. A nice addition to collection if you can't get the Egyptian or Greek blue, but a bit desaturated. Let me know if you've got comments or questions.